He's back. Terry Collier's back.
And what's the first thing Britain's likeliest lad gets up to?
You'd stop at nothing, would you? You devious brat!
I'm not denying that I put it about a bit.
You'd have had a frog if you'd stopped hopping long enough.
All I am saying is that I am capable of deeper emotions than wham bam thank you, man.
So, sex didn't come into it?
Of course sex came into it. I haven't changed all that much.
Bad news for Bob? The Likely Lads, Thursday at 9 on BBC Two. To Shell, it was a disposable oil tank. To Greenpeace, it was a platform for their movement.
You're doing the job of the rapists of the planet.
Using unseen film from both sides, we reveal the politics,
If you call this blackmail, that's okay, isn't it?
the piracy, and the propaganda.
They certainly stage managed a number of events, if not all their events.
Of the battle for Brent Spar.
We mean what we do, and then we film it.
Sunday at 8 on BBC Two.
Bianca has stars in her eyes on BBC One shortly, but not so Ricky in EastEnders. On BBC Two now, the fight goes on to improve the horrific conditions in some of Europe's zoos. This is the second update from State of the Ark.
Captured on camera. The tourist camcorder is the weapon that bad zoos fear most. Actor Bill Travers swapped a starring role in front of the camera for a campaigning role behind it. These are his pictures. For the last years of his life, he's travelled the world exposing the mental and physical suffering of thousands of zoo animals.
In 6 or 7 years of travelling around Europe, India or America, all sorts of places, I've never come across one single zoo that hasn't had some really bad exhibits where the animal is suffering from stereotypic behavior in some form or other, and where there is some form of deprivation, which is, to me anyway, totally unacceptable.
Bill Travers died last year, leaving his wife, the actress Virginia McKenna, and son Will to carry on his work. The last zoo he filmed at was Limassol in Cyprus.
Cyprus, Antony's gift to Cleopatra, holidaymaker's favorite. And here, cramped into a small corner of the municipal gardens, Limassol Zoo. And for a few cents, you can see caged wildlife at its worst. Outraged holidaymakers had written protesting. Many local Cypriots were disgusted. In such conditions, all things go dreadfully wrong. But some found fun in the merciless imprisonment.
Since Bill's death, Virginia McKenna has helped found a task force dedicated to improving conditions for zoo animals. For Virginia, Limassol Zoo is unfinished business, and one of her first tasks is to retrace Bill's footsteps.
Its stereotypic compulsive behaviour shows it has already become mentally ill.
Well, I suppose what distressed him perhaps most was the fact that they had brought in other species to this zoo, that they now were also destined to live out their lives in these barren concrete cages, particularly the bears, I think he found very distressing, and of course the elephants still being in the same situation. I understand that quite a lot of input has been given to the zoo on request for things that could be done, but certainly at the end of '93 there was no evidence of that. So I'm looking forward to seeing now how things have changed and if they've changed. And my work here was really taking his visual evidence and being able to use that as my tool to write to the authorities, to embassies, to try and get things done, to try to get people to go and have a look, to see if improvements could be made, to reassure the public who wrote to us that we are trying to do something about these animals. We worked very much in harmony, but not always together, but alongside each other, each fulfilling a very special role. Of course, his role is unfilled in that way at the moment. There are people who are going round for us filming things now and again, but this dynamic force and dynamic element that he brought, because of his own passion and commitment, we haven't got.
Born Free was to change profoundly the lives of husband and wife co-stars Bill Travers and Virginia McKenna. When they discovered that co-star Elsa was destined for captivity, they began a lifelong campaign against zoos.
They were a team. My mum and dad were a team for 40 years. He would have been enormously surprised, and I think disappointed, if he thought that his passing away was going to mean that she would no longer continue with the work. I think that he felt that it was bigger than any one person, miles bigger than any one person, and so she's as active as ever, if not more.
I think it's going to be very difficult for the zoo director to accept criticisms. The director is a vet himself. He obviously feels he has a position of great experience and understanding, but I think he will find it, as a lot of people do, very hard to accept foreigners coming into the country.
The size of an average football pitch, Limassol Zoo in Cyprus is surrounded by roads and overlooked by tourist hotels. 170 animals are crammed onto this tiny site. Frequent coats of fresh paint haven't prevented a constant flood of complaints. With an economy reliant on tourism, the Cypriots have had to act. They've spent thousands of pounds, some of it on enlarging cages, but most of it on decor, repainting, new fences, gardens and fountains. Behind the greenery, little has changed. The animals are still living on concrete floors in small cages.
It's very strange walking the same paths that Bill walked, and I'm very pleased that I've had the chance to do this, because what he'd started to do is certainly not going to stop. He's going to carry on. So it's just like keeping the work going, and that's very important to me. That's what's helping me a lot now, is to sort of keep the work going. And although there have been some cosmetic changes since he came, and he too might have been pleased with some of them, we both would have agreed, I think, that they are cosmetic, and that they're not the kind of changes that perhaps we think are necessarily for the better.
Filming as a tourist, Bill Travers' visits to the zoo were unofficial and undetected. For Virginia, it's a very different story.
Picture in our zoo.
The zoo knows she's coming, and the director, Dr. Lamprou Lambrou, is waiting.
Thank you very much.
To see and to inform you about our zoo.
What I would like to do, if it's all right by you, is first to go
Yes,
around
please.
by myself. Is that
Yes.
acceptable
No,
to you?
yes.
Because as it's the first time, so I can take as much time as I need in front of
Yes.
each enclosure.
Yes, yes.
And then, obviously, later on or tomorrow we could go together, or
Yes.
I know you have a busy
Anytime
day in your veterinary
I
surgery.
spend my whole time for you.
Wherever Virginia goes, she'll be shadowed by zoo staff and reminded of her husband's last visit here.
The elephant's cage is unchanged. Some of the £280,000 may have bought a little fountain in the road outside for the elephant to look at. But where was the wallow? Elephants need to bathe daily and wallow and dust to protect their skins. They suffer from sunburn. Where was the shade? They travel many miles each day, but where was the space?
Well, I don't like to be cynical, but I can't help feeling that this hosing operation is perhaps done for my benefit here. I know that the elephant, Julie's, meant to be hosed down 4 times a day. But people who visited the zoo haven't actually witnessed it that often. The solitude for a female elephant, well, everybody knows, who knows anything about elephants, that females cannot live alone and be content. Resignation is something else. It hasn't got any choice, poor thing.
The zoo staff won't let Virginia out of their sight. The director and his keepers are never further than a few steps away.
And I wonder what the changes have been or will be.
Painting the bars is a public relations exercise which makes no difference to the animals living behind them. The baboons are still pacing more than 2 years after Bill Travers' last visit.
These tragic creatures, head-twisting, pacing uncontrollably and convulsively, are somehow trying to escape the pain of the merciless imprisonment they can no longer endure. The leopard, as usual, faces a figure of 8 to somehow escape the reality of its purposeless existence. Conditions which allow a tiger and a lioness to be put together.
I don't quite know why the tiger and the lion would have been put together except as a kind of a gimmick. And we're going to have a bit more hosing now. There's another indication of what we were looking at earlier, which is kind of intrusion and stage management for us. I find it really difficult to watch the animals when they're being disturbed. I like to watch animals when they're left alone so that they're doing what they feel they want to do at that moment, even if it's just sitting in a corner for half an hour. I think they should just at least have that choice in their lives. There haven't many others.
These wonderfully ever-curious creatures which dig and scratch in the soil now slither about on the slime of their concrete floor.